Hey guys, my name is Danny and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be checking out Glenrothes whiskey. This is the 10-year bottle, which is the cheapest one out of the Soleo range. And today we're going to be tasting it, and we're also going to be trying out something a little bit weird. Because one of the tasting notes in this, I already know since I already tried it, is kind of like this buttery shortbread flavour that it has. So I thought if you guys are new to tasting whiskey, a good way you can kind of try and pick out more of these flavors for yourself and sort of distinguish, well, what exactly does shortbread taste like? Well, one thing you can do is you can literally eat some shortbread or even have something that tastes like vanilla and then go back to your whiskey and go in between. It works the same way with pretty much any food, like apples, for example. Actually having the real thing with you before you go and taste your whiskey can help you distinguish those specific notes within it. So then in the future, when you just try something, you'll be able to pinpoint those flavors inside the whiskey. For now, let me explain a little bit about Glenrothes. This is a Speyside single malt Scotch whiskey, as you guys can see. And what that basically means, single malt, is that it's just been made in one single distillery, which this one is a Scotch whiskey, so it's been made in Scotland, and it's also been made in Speyside. Now, Speyside is basically a region in Scotland, and I think over half the distilleries in Scotland, last time I checked, actually are in Speyside. So just because you've had maybe one Speyside whiskey doesn't mean you've tried them all. They're all very different, and this one is very sweet, which I kind of like actually, and it has grown on me, which we'll get into in a moment. But as I said, this is from the Glenrothes distillery, and it is actually the cheapest in their range. I think that came out last year in 2019, Soleo range. It's named Soleo because it's a reference to the process that the sherry wine makers would use to actually dry their grapes. They had laid them out in the sun on mats for 1 week to 3 weeks, depending on the weather, to basically dry out. And what this actually does is it raises the sugar content in the grape. And then when they pick the grapes up and use them in fermentation, they have a lot higher sugar content for the amount of wine that's being made. That's how you get such a sweet taste in some sherry wines using that process. Now, since this whiskey is aged for 10 years in a sherry wine cask, it should have some of those same notes that you'd expect to find, some of the sweeter notes that you'd expect to find in sherry wine, one of them being vanilla. I can already tell you because I've already tasted it. Now, one of the interesting things, I just want to talk about the bottle a little bit because, I mean, the design and the box is incredible, and honestly, this is one of the best whiskey bottles out there, period, excluding some of the ridiculously fancy expensive ones, but like just in terms of practicality. So firstly, starting out with the label, because this is really interesting, you can see it firstly tells us that it's been matured in sherry cask, like I just said. It also says the color is natural. It obviously is natural. I mean, it's been in a cask for 10 years. It is going to be this nice sort of auburn dark amber sort of color to it, because it's been breathing in and out of that oak for so long. But that is a big difference compared to yesterday's video we made about the Australian whiskey that had only been matured for 3 years, but because of the difference in climate, it actually had a natural colour that was almost this dark, just because it breathed in and out of that oak at more of a pace because of the difference in temperature between night and day. So go back and watch that video if you're interested in that sort of the science behind that. But anyway, the next thing on this label we can see is it actually tells us some of the tasting notes. So it says it's got vanilla, shortbread, lemon peel, which is good, I think, if you're kind of new to whiskey and you're like, oh, I want to try something different and sweet. And then you see this and you're like, oh, I kind of might like those flavors. I'm going to try that. Or you might think, oh, that's not for me. So I kind of do really respect the fact that they've put that on the bottle. The best thing about this bottle, though, and why I'm raving about it and having this conversation is the top. So as you guys can see, we have to twist it first because it's actually a twist cap and a cork. So you can see the ridges there on the bottle. Now, the reason they've done this, let me just see if I can show you the ridges on the inside of that plastic bottle top there. and then you can see the cork as well. That's basically going to stop the cork breaking inside the whiskey. And what actually happens, that kind of ruins your whiskey when that does happen, if it's ever happened to you, because whiskey will actually eat the cork, so it will completely ruin the flavor and taste. And all I can smell right now is vanilla. So let's actually pour this into our glass and have a taste. So again, we can see that beautiful golden amber color, which looks amazing. And I mean, the vanilla, all you can smell from here already is vanilla. But also you get this buttery, sweet flavor that does remind me of shortbread, actually. And I kind of want to... grassy as well, very grassy notes. You don't get any alcohol. It's actually 40% ABV, and I can't smell any alcohol at all. It's a really nice starter whiskey, actually, because you can just smell it and enjoy those sweet flavors. It's actually very nice on the nose, very sweet. And very easy to drink too. It's got this lovely oily texture to it, which is really nice. And it kind of, I get the shortbread a bit. The butteriness comes through as well, more so I would say. It kind of reminds me of Werther Originals in terms of that oily, nice texture you get in your mouth when you have those. And it's very, very sweet. You also get, with the aftertaste, it kind of hits you with this little bit of zesty lemon. I think the reason on the bottle they say lemon peel is because if you've ever bitten into like a lemon peel, you get that kind of, that zesty sort of taste to it more so than just the lemon itself. So I think it describes it very well, actually. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's just very easy to drink. It's very enjoyable. It's very simple. It's not complex. And sometimes you don't want a complex whiskey. And I think some people think when I say, oh, it's not very complex, it's a bad thing, but it's really not. In fact, I looked at a survey recently about wine, and they tested a bunch of average people like me and you, and they said, okay, 100 people or so all got to try some expensive wines versus some cheaper wines, and they could all tell the difference, because they said that the expensive wines had a lot going on, a lot of complexity, and more often than not, though, everyone preferred the cheaper wine because it was simple, still nice, still enjoyable, but it had like this one kind of thing that it was doing well and therefore could be enjoyed. And if you've ever had an expensive wine, it's definitely an experience, but it's something you can't have too much of because it's kind of got this whole explosion of this happened and over here, then that's going on over there, and then that happened, and it's like sweet with a different finish, and it kind of takes you on this crazy journey, and you sometimes just don't want that. And this whiskey kind of reminds me of that concept of it's very simple, sweet, enjoyable. I can't fault it, and it's got a journey there. It does have a nice journey. Sweet, that nice zesty lemon. You know, it's got something going on, and for that reason I really do enjoy it, and it really makes me want to try out the next whiskey in this range when I save up a bit of money. Before we go ahead though, I want to add a little bit of water to this and see if it brings out any other flavours that I missed. But the thing is, guys, is that it's 40% already, so anything lower than that, it's not really a whiskey anymore. But I always like to do this with new whiskies I've not tasted, just because sometimes it brings out like a nice tasting sweet point, though to be honest with you, it's perfect as it is, and I usually wouldn't add any water to this, but I kind of just want to do it to see if it tastes any different for the camera. So to celebrate that we got to 1,000 subscribers, I thought I would treat us to a fancy whiskey water dropper. Usually I just use a spoon, but I thought, you know, let's get something cool. It's very simple. It's literally just a beautiful piece of glass, and I'll link it down below where you can get it for yourself from Amazon, and it just kind of, it ups your whiskey game basically. But you can see it's got a hole just here. So the idea is that you dip this into water and you put your finger over the hole to create a vacuum, so obviously the water doesn't drop out, and then when you release your finger on that hole, the water drops out into your whiskey. So if I add some water to the whiskey right now, if I let go of that hole now, goes into the glass. There you go. So you can see the oils there reacting to the water. And usually what you do is you let it sit and let it react in there. And then you can go back to it. Okay, so we're going to go back in here and have a taste now. Oh, I get more woody afternotes now. Oh, okay. I didn't know that would happen. That's really interesting. I get some of the wood of the cask, some sort of, a bit of toastiness actually. Very interesting. And that zesty lemon comes through even more now. So that you know, you always learn something by putting water into a whiskey, and the first time I have it, you know, I always do that so I can experiment with where that sweet point actually is on where I want to drink it. It's especially true if you're drinking or buying whiskies at like 60% or so. You know, you really change the experience as you go through adding a little bit of water each time. Okay, here we go. What happens if we have some Scottish shortbread? So personally, I can already pick out the shortbread taste in this whiskey. But if we go ahead and eat some Scottish buttery shortbread, like this is proper Scottish shortbread, hand baked in Scotland, my friends. Okay. Buttery, melts in your mouth shortbread. It's like proper shortbread. You got this for £2 on sale, by the way. A steal. So we go back to the whiskey now. Yeah, I mean, oh, actually, it does make it more distinguished. I'm not going to lie. It does enhance that shortbread flavour. Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's a fun thing to do, especially if you can't... if someone on the internet tells you, oh, this has green apples in, okay? And then you go out to your supermarket, you buy an apple and you buy the whiskey, then you have some of the apple, you have some of the whiskey, and it does really help you pick up on those notes. So I definitely suggest trying it out for yourself at home. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. You can find all of my tasting equipment, including my new water dropper, linked in the description on Amazon for yourself, as well as a few different fancy glasses and whatnot. And those are affiliate links as well. So anything you get through those links helps support the channel. I've set it all out there, including a very good book that I recommend if you are starting whiskey tasting for yourself. So check that out on the link below, guys. But thanks for watching. Subscribe and press the bell icon if you want to be notified about our next video, or watch the whole playlist of whiskey reviews in the playlist below. And we kind of go through in further and further depth about how to taste and enjoy whiskey. So the first video is like great if you're starting out. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Have a fantastic day and goodbye.